How to help my brain injury child starting today. Infection as well. Okay, you have a lot going on. First of all, I would seriously look at my swallow course, taking consideration to the movement of the brain, right? We're going to step away from vision at the moment. You're not getting good visual help and guidance, and you're going after vision. You have way too much going on. We've got to stabilize the medical. Okay? So, first of all, I wouldn't have flown with a brain injury. You've got pressurizations of the cabins, all of that. You can see the downfall in, Mark Kelly's wife, she got shot in the head. Anyway, here, no, there, can't go backwards. But I want you to work especially on cranial water bowl technique and with the swallow course. You've got Tegaderm, you've got all of that. I'm sure you've had cannulation. Now, I'm suspecting also intubation. You might say no. But we have to do that course priority and the breathing course priority. Those are your two priorities right now because we've got to stabilize the balance of the brain. I'm going to try and find a really good video I did to explain what a PVL really does to the system, because when you have injuries like that or infections, they want to succumb to gravity, right? Biology wants to oppose gravity, right? And they succumb to gravity. And that's where you've got the balance issue or the shake. Now you also have the NG tube. When you have the NG tube, now the cranial movements are also off balance. I don't know why you don't have a G-tube yet. Lots of times in many countries, they don't go to a PEG, or people think of the eating first. You've got to at least be aware of how it's going to affect development and vision. Guys, just go like this. Just look at me, look around, and then go there and just put a little bit of pressure and twist. Can you see? They're already talking about cortical visual impairment on a 3-month-old because they assume so because of the brain injury and the CP, right? I'm not buying it. First of all, cortical visual impairment comes way after delayed visual maturation, and I'm going to have to do a separate live just on the vision, right? Because if I overwhelm you, I lose you and I lose that child. And so right now, you've got to get to work. Your child is being labeled with, but if we just get rid of the reflux, if we just get rid of the infection, if we just get rid of that, you know what I mean? Which is true. There's medical, but there's also movement and milestones, and you've got to be doing it. And right now, too, there might be an underlying genetics because of the hypotonia. Hypotonia is not typical with cerebral palsy. You'll see the high tone, the low tone, and so forth. That's what you're after. And low tone suggests maybe more genetics. So even though you had the birth trauma and so forth going on, again, the reasons for the premature delivery or whatever, the hypotonia or the non-responsiveness, we've got to get on it. But we've got to get the breathing right. We didn't have a good first breath. We've got respiratory disruption, and also we've got the swallow disruption because there's a tube going through the throat. And so you're throwing off the swallow mechanism. Right, that NG tube is to keep your child alive. I get it, but you know we've got to keep the movement alive. So I'm not saying don't do anything medically that your doctors aren't already doing, but we've got to get this child moving, right? But first movement is breathing. Why? Because if you can't oppose gravity in breath, which is the easiest way to oppose gravity, the complications of not doing it in walking are so severe, because if I can't organize gravity in breath, how am I supposed to do it in walking, right? But this is where a lot of people get frustrated with movement lesson and like, I'm 30, what do I have to do the rolling over course? If you do not have a good foundation in the movements, those deviations will always show up, right? I started golfing. It's this little ball this big. If I hit that ball just a fraction, right? You can tell how I hit that ball based off the trajectory where that ball landed. That's the same thing with development, right? And so the foundation needs to be there. Your child is not moving, right? We've got to get the breath swallow ratio under control, right? Because again, if I'm not breathing, if I'm not swallowing, I'm not running a company. right? My brain will shut down to these little things. My son could not eat and see. If he was eating, his eyes literally looked like a pinball machine because his brain was like, I'm doing one or the other, but I can't do both. Right? So by focusing right now on the vision, which we're going to do, I'm going to do another live for that because you're doing way too much on the child. We've got to be able to catch his vision. But also, too, the vision at that age goes with the head. And he's got an NG tube, so he's literally like trying to so you're not allowing him to see successfully. So again, just do this and see and go around like that, and then do this and now try and get around. Like this is like I'm seeing double. I can't see the phone anymore. I can't see, all of that just from that little bit of pressure. No, and again, I'm not saying rip out the NG tube. We have to feed him, but we've got to work with both. He's got too much medical going on him. Now you want him to see. He's just like, yeah, whatever. When something is difficult or hurts a baby, they will not do it. They don't say, this rolling over thing, I think if I wait until Friday, I can do it. That's adulting. When we say, oh, when everything calms down, then I can do it. Let me know when calm happens. So that's when you can't use those kind of comprehensive ideas on an infant. It's not how movement works. It's not what's going to be successful your child. So swallow course, mandatory. Breathing course, mandatory. Those are your first two. I want a 2-week follow-up. From the 2-week, now I'm going to do it again, another live in a bit on the vision, but I want a 2-week follow-up of what's going on so we can start getting, again, this child moving and going from there. I'm going to start being a little bit harder with you guys because I don't think you realize, I think you realize that it's so bad that it can't get any worse, and anything that's okay is just a bonus. That's not what I want from your child. I want your child to have the best that can happen. Follow Erin right now. She's in the hospital in the NICU right now with her baby, and he just happens to have Down syndrome. She was given a list of the things he's not going to do, right? And knowing what she knows now from optimal development, or what she teaches as well, she knows. And so, but if the child sits earlier than this packet, everyone's like, and no, that's not how it is, right? They look at worst case scenario and they put worst case scenario on your child. That's what they do by the U.S. government with development standards and milestones, and it's just got to stop. But your child needs help. And right now it's respiratory. Even though you say, hey, ma'am, the breathing's fine now, it never set up properly in the child's nervous system. The swallow cannot happen whatsoever, the breath-swallow ratio, because there's a tube going down. And so with the NG tube and so forth, again, it's necessary, but